Why do I feel like I linger? Linger between the words to say the words to remember.
Hello guys, I'm back again with another one of these Baki versus Kengan videos, the Fighter v Fighter series, and this one is one I see requested a lot, across different places on the internet, like Reddit and stuff like that, due to the similarities in their fighting styles, but this fight actually turns out to be pretty situational. It's not just a slugfest of stats. I'll have to do something that I actually haven't done before in one of these matches. I'll actually have to discuss how the fight goes down. You see, for one reason or another, in the matches I've done so far, Retsu versus Kano Agito, Sam Pierre Atlas versus Okubo, Kaneda versus Kaku, and Ali versus Galang, there hasn't really been a need to discuss the actual fight. With the exception of Retsu versus Kano, the gap in the physical stats of each of the fighters was large enough that the fight itself was pretty much irrelevant. Like putting Julius up against a toddler. And even the Retsu versus Kano fight basically only came down to one thing, and that one thing basically decided the match, so the fight wasn't important, as it would inevitably come down to that one thing. For further details, go watch those videos, with the exception of Kaneda versus Kaku, because fuck my life. But this fight basically comes down to this. Yanagi has two different ways to win, and one of them is extremely easy to succeed with, but Bando only has one way to win, and it consists of him deciding to do something he normally doesn't do. Despite that, Bando's win condition is actually the easiest win condition to achieve out of all the possible win conditions for either fighter, if he does end up making that decision that he doesn't normally make. But enough rambling about, very general and broad things. It's time to get into the specifics. First off, just wanted to clarify that if we allowed Yanagi to use his weapons, Yanagi would be more likely to win than Bando. If we say it's like an ambush a la Convict Arc Baki, Yanagi has the bang knock to slowly slice Bando, likely leading to him bleeding out. Yanagi has his katana we see him use against Doyle to dispatch Bando's limbs or head. He can basically slice him up. And Yanagi even has an answer to Whip Strike's range. We'll talk about Whip Strike's extended range later, but of course Yanagi has his roped sickles that we see him use against Baki at Baki's school. He could use that to slice and bleed out Bando while avoiding the Whip Strike's range. Now let's discuss hand-to-hand combat specifically. To give a small overview of their potential as far as their physical stats, because their stats will more so justify the fight rather than define it like the other fights, I'll quickly rattle off their main important points. For one, Bando is much stronger. Dude killed his tournament entry competition in one hit. He fought Hanafusa, the Dissector, and he was able to crack his arm and rib in one punch, and he snapped Hanafusa's neck with ease, killing him instantly. And put that in quotes because, Hanafusa's not really dead. But, Hanafusa, physically speaking, should be equivalent or, comparable to Yanagi. I don't know, he might be a little bit stronger, he might be a little bit weaker, I'm not sure. He's probably stronger based off of my knowledge of the series. Just based on, raw physical strength, Hanafusa's probably stronger than Yanagi, though not by much, not by a margin that would be, so grand. But, yeah, it's close enough that I don't know for sure, and it's too close to get into the specifics in this video. And if that isn't enough to cement my conclusion about their difference in strength, with Bando likely being considerably stronger than Yanagi, even Hatsumi probably would have been one-shot by Bando when he was using the Whip Strike. I can see Yanagi taking a couple of Bando's punches with only taking major damage, but a successful Whip Strike will 100% kill Yanagi in one hit. Bando's Whip Strikes blitzed everyone in the tournament, with the faster characters like Hatsumi only being able to see streaks of his arms. Someone of Yanagi's speed might be able to see the streaks, but it's more likely he'd be in the camp that sees nothing but the explosion afterward. And if you think Yanagi is able to survive a direct strike that blows up concrete, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. Jerry, a low-tier fighter, can't even 100% see the Whip Strike himself, And for all anyone normal can see, the ground around Bando is just randomly exploding. It's so potent, people genuinely thought Bando was using explosives. Like, Yanagi is not only the weakest convict physically, but he's comparable to Shibukawa. You know, we saw them trade blows, and apparently they traded blows in the past. That's how Shibukawa lost his eye. But Shibukawa is also the weakest main cast member physically, so, you know, the weakest convict also scales to the weakest main cast member. You know, they are physically, like, not able to stand up to somebody like Bando, who can, you know, break arms and ribs in one hit. Not only will Bando one-shot with the whip strikes, but the massive speed gap between Yanagi's reaction and Bando's attacks is insane. Furthermore, since Hatsumi can at least somewhat react to the whip strikes, and Bando can react to him attacking, Bando is probably faster than Yanagi as well, even by a significant degree. Though it's important to say that Bando usually doesn't dodge attacks that he doesn't deem necessary to dodge, such as the Chin Na from Hanafusa. I mean, Bando was even able to react to Hatsumi reacting to his whip strike, so if Bando was roughly that fast, Yanagi is going to have a damn hard time. Now, something that Yanagi has a leg up on Bando on is that his joints, you know, the shifting of Bando's joints, that doesn't really do shit here. Bando's joints are impressive, don't get me wrong. Like, the guy can slip out of some pretty crazy restraints by manipulating his joints, and he was able to break Hanafusa's fingers with the back of his head by wedging Hanafusa's fingers between his head and his spine, which crushed his fingers. You know, Hanafusa tried to strike a pressure point on the back of his neck, and that was the result. You know, he even says he has a control over his joints so that he has a 140-degree lateral movement in his joints, when most people, if I remember correctly, it says only have a 50-degree control of, like, lateral movement. He's got 140, so almost 100 degrees more than a normal person for his joints. But yeah, like I said, luckily for Yanagi, his attacks target the skin, not organs, not muscles, nothing like that. He targets the skin, so no matter how much the joints or bones of Bando's body shift and move around, his whole body is still one big target. I should also mention that locks that rely on joints don't work on Bando, but Yanagi isn't really much of a grappler as we see in the series, so it likely won't come up. It's just, you know, something to possibly keep in mind. Something that will matter here, however, is that thing I mentioned earlier, Bando's extended range. He can actually dislocate his joints to extend the range of his whip strike. Now, basically for Yanagi, we already addressed his strength, and his speed with Benda tops out a bit above Mach 2, probably, because that would be the speed of a whip. Now, Yanagi took some ass whoopings throughout the arc. Hell, he even survived a couple of Benda strikes from Baki, who should be able to quite quickly and quite handily kill a normal person with the pain of the strikes just in a couple of hits. But Yanagi did cry like a little bitch, so compared to Bando, he's only okay in terms of endurance and durability. You know, Bando was able to survive countless execution attempts, 45 execution attempts, and he was fine. And he's got the stamina to kill 16 men and some cops with his bare hands, like the man just trucks on. Also, his muscles are so thick that they basically low-noped all the pressure points of the style that Hanafusa was trying to use on him. But, like I said, you know, muscles being thick, that's also pretty much 100% useless here, since Yanagi attacks the skin. Bando may have lost to Hatsumi, but he survived that fatal attack. Yanagi also survived Yujiro's attack, but just barely and not without its price. Now, I do recognize that Yujiro is billions of times stronger than Hatsumi will ever be, but, you know, fair point in saying that Bando had a lot easier of a time surviving a fatal attack than Yanagi did. Bando has the advantage in just about everything. Speed, strength, endurance, reach, possibly even stamina. So now it comes down to how the fight would actually go. The meat and potatoes, so to speak, of this fight. So Yanagi's got two ways of winning here. See, as Bando explains to Hatsumi after the fight, Bando only uses the whip strike when he wants to win against someone strong. Due to watching Hatsumi's fight beforehand, he knew that Hatsumi was strong, and Bando felt like he had something to prove. However, just as Yanagi not knowing about the whip strike is his disadvantage, Bando not knowing Yanagi's true threat is Bando's disadvantage. Yanagi may be weak physically speaking, but if Bando does what he did against Hanafusa, goes up and just tries to sock him one, which is likely what he'll do due to lack of prior knowledge here, all it would do is give Yanagi the chance to give him one Bendis shot, and that one Bendis shot will basically decide the match. Now, Bando probably has the endurance to take enough Bendis strikes to realize whip strikes are necessary. He busts out the whip strikes, and there's no recourse or action Yanagi can take at that point once the whip strikes are out to win. If the whip strikes come out, Yanagi loses. That's it. And based on the fact that he was able to kill 16 men and some police barehanded and truck on, he was able to survive 45 hangings with his neck joints. He has that level of endurance because he was able to do these things. I think at the very least he'd be able to survive enough of Yanagi's Bendis strikes to say, hey, this guy might actually knock me out or kill me from the pain, so I better finish this quickly. However, Yanagi only needs to land one hit to win, like I mentioned earlier. See, it's not about Yanagi's Bendo. It's about Yanagi's Poison Hand. See, Yanagi's Poison Hand is so potent that, quote, a small amount can cause blindness, like against Doyle. If it reaches the bloodstream, it kills the person by making them rot from the inside out, right down to the bone. The poison is implied to be fast-acting, as we see with the flower Yanagi killed almost instantly. He was also quite shocked Baki was still alive after a couple of Benda slaps. End quote. Seeing as Baki's surviving the way he did, in this condition, was considered a miracle, and he was probably only able to survive because Hanma seemed to be resistant or outright immune to poison, I don't see this going very well for Bando. You see, Bando is not resistant or immune to any kind of poison. So that means when Yanagi uses Benda and slaps Bando, it'll tear his skin, just like we see with Baki, and the poison hand will make direct contact with Bando's muscle fiber and bloodstream. Bando will then melt from the inside and die long before he has the chance to kill Yanagi. And it only gets worse if Yanagi hits him multiple times. At the best case scenario for Bando, he'd probably kill Yanagi with a whip strike and die almost immediately afterwards with no chance of a cure, as only a Poison Hand user can cure Poison Hand. We even see Shinogi Kureha and Ando Reiho fail to cure the Poison Hand disease, two of the foremost leading doctors slash medicine people within Baki. At the very least, Shinogi, as far as being a doctor, should probably be comparable to Hanafusa, so we're left with Kengan's best doctor can't cure it either. Now granted, I could say that that the Falcon, Albert, as he was just introduced not too long ago in Kengan Omega, he has the Poison Hand, he has his version of the Poison Hand, so he might be able to cure Bando, but we don't know where he is in the world right now. He has no idea this is going on, and it would be impossible to get him from wherever he is to, wherever they're fighting before Bando dies. Like, he's dying practically immediately after he kills Yanagi. So, it's all for naught. Yeah, the poison is so potent. Hanafusa, much like Dr. Shinogi and Ando, would be at an absolute loss as to what to do. So, with that in mind, I'd say Yanagi wins this fight. Bando almost never dodged unless faced with a lethal attack, usually taking them and countering or blocking with his thick muscles. However, since Bendo targets the target's skin to attack via the pain of the slap, muscles won't do anything to help against it. It's said in Baki that this slap is the same to soft and hard muscles, so hard muscles really don't help against it at all. Bando can take the pain from the Benda slaps, but not the poison. Even if the Poison Hand seems like a cop-out to you, Yanagi could potentially KO Bando at any time in the entire fight with Vacuum Palm, a technique that forces the target to inhale 6% oxygen, which is lower than the percentage of oxygen at the peak of Mount Everest, if I remember correctly. knocking him out instantly. Yanagi usually uses this technique while asking the opponent what the most poisonous gas is, which I believe Bando would be receptive to with his inquisitive, scientifically oriented mind. They would converse, Yanagi closes the distance, Bando speaks with his arms ready to strike at the first sign of movement, Yanagi launches the attack, and Bando strikes him, likely breaking many bones with like the clavicle, the ribs, you know, in that area coming down. Like we see his arm go up, it would come down and smash him up. But at that point, it's already too late. All Yanagi has to do is place his hand over Bando's mouth and it's over. He can do that while he's being smashed. Yanagi either wins with no damage, possibly heavy damage from Bando's counterattack, by using Benda and the Poison Hand, or he wins with heavy injuries with his Vacuum Palm. Thanks for watching, guys. This one was a real doozy, and I thought it was an awesome match. Let me know what you guys want to see next, or who you think would win and why in the comments section below. Make sure to like and subscribe for more of this content, and I'll see you guys next time.